Hi, Sonia Schmidt here with a redo from last night's show. Apparently, I had a few audio problems that I didn't realize I was having, even though everybody was yelling at me in the chat room about having them. And I didn't notice it until maybe 15 minutes into my show, which must not have been very fun for you guys. I'm going to take a moment to be like the liberal left and blame it on you and say something like, that's what you get for tuning into lip reading night. But that's not going to work, is it? And that was all my fault. I'm biting off a lot more than I can chew, and each week I take on something new. All right, forget about the excuses. It's going to get better. Just don't leave me. I'm so desperate. No, it's what happens when you're not working in a studio. I'm actually in my dining room. I don't want any of that in. I hesitated to do the show last night because it was Mother's Day, and the subject matter is a little, I don't want to say discouraging for parents. The subject matter being a tad bit racy, I almost declined from doing it, and I started to do it tonight, so I guess I'm getting the best of both worlds. I won't recap all the stuff that I said, but trust me, it was great. Mostly about me being a single parent, also how the left made our abilities to parent in the way that we choose fit so much more difficult. And then that was my lead in to what's happening now in California. We're getting something called a health education framework. It was voted in. It's pretty flipping horrifying. But what it is a recipe to confuse our children, to bring in elements of sexuality that are way beyond their age group, even though they're saying they're doing it at an age-appropriate level. I think most of us would agree that our children need not learn any of this from other people. They should be brought into this when we deem fit, in the way we deem fit. So anyway, if you haven't heard anything about the health education framework, which is more than likely coming to a town near you, stay tuned to my interview with Joe Messina. He is an author of a book called Ramblings of a Right-Wing Bible-Thumping White Guy. He's also a host of the Real Side Radio Show, which you can catch from Facebook Live or from his website. Again, my apologies for last night's audio problem. I don't know how it got off. I practiced so many times before last night. I guess it just wasn't supposed to be seen at that time. It's funny, I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, you know what? Everything is the way it's supposed to be. So hello, Joe.
Hello, Sonia.
How are you? Why are we talking like Cary Grant?
If we can only record and sell the stuff we say before we actually go live.
I know. Then we jump on talking like Cary Grant. Joe. Okay, so so I've already filled my audience in on what this sordid topic is about. So why do you know so much about what's going on?
I'm a trustee of one of the in one of the largest school districts in Southern California, and so when I first got on there and seeing what was going on and what was happening and trying to pay attention, California school boards work a little different than some do in other states. In other states, they truly are education boards. The Board of Education, which is what we would be considered. We make the decisions as to what books to use and what to spend money on and that kind of stuff. They don't have a state board of education that dictates. In California, the state board of education dictates to us how we spend our money, how much money we're going to get. And the board, about 85% of what the board does is rubber stamping. So state of California says, hey, you will use one of these three books for history. And then what we do is we report back to them, yes, we've used book A, and we certified it, we've used book A. So a lot of that stuff gets pushed down on us. About 15% of it is what they refer to as discretionary, but we use that because, let me back up a little bit. About 85% of our budget is, ready for this one, salaries and benefits.
Wow,
so
85%.
Can you imagine a business running with 85 to 90% of its budget just for salaries and benefits? So that's what we have to do.
Yeah, when it's somebody else's money, I can imagine.
Well, it's taxpayer money, and we get all of this, and the union's very much involved in obviously the salaries and the benefits. The other 15% is discretionary. We can use it for sports. We need it for maintenance. We use it for the normal everyday business thing. So it's not a whole bunch of money. I mean, in our district, we have a $240 million budget. So 15% of that. You do the math. I don't get paid for that. I think it's like 60 or 70 million bucks to do the rest of it with.
Right.
And we do a pretty darn good job, in taking care of our kids. We've won all kinds of awards. But when you see what the legislators push down on us, and I think that's part of what sparked this conversation between you and I, is some information that I sent you on what's going on. I got to tell you, we get things pushed down on us when it comes to sex education. That I look at me. I'm not a squishy. I blush at the stuff.
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
even want to talk
When you
about
sent it to me, I still haven't read it all. I sent it to my kids. I sent it to a woman who I talked about earlier on the show because I do think it's important that we get the word out. But I felt like I was looking at something that I wasn't supposed to. It felt, if I closed it because it just felt dirty and awful. Now, your position's not going to be jeopardized by talking about this?
No, not at all. Because so you know me for a long time. I'm real open, even on the school board. I'm very,
Okay.
I'm very
Yes,
talkative about this
yes,
stuff.
you're not shy. Okay, so this is called what they put this under the guise of the sexual health and HIV prevention education. Now, who can argue with that? Really, it sounds.
It sounds great, doesn't it?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
But what's? Can you tell us what's really going on here? Why would they be pushing this on our children?
When you actually look at what it is, okay, and it's you know as well as I do what it is. It's the California legislators that have decided that they know better what's for your kids. They know better when sex ed should kick in and what they should be taught and when. If you think about it, Planned Parenthood's been trying to get into our schools. So now you take the sex ed, and it is pure, unadulterated sex education. And you're right, the title makes it sound like, well, who would be against that? But when you see it's how to have sex in same-sex relationships. It's how to pleasure oneself. It talks about the family in ways that you and I would not agree with. We're more, I believe, I'm more of a traditionalist. So when you talk about family with me, I'm thinking male, female, and children, or what have you. And so it's taking the role of a parent at the school level, but even taking it further and saying these kind of sexual activities are fine.
And I know that the excuse that they often use is that, well, parents are uncomfortable with kids knowing this, and kids are going to do it anyhow. So it becomes our role to do it. I can't think of any subject that I would take away from a parent, but how could you go into the realm of sexuality in a way that's so off the beaten path for such young children? Some of this stuff is pre-K education that we're talking about here.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about the spiritual aspect of this, but what is going on in their minds that this is what they find important?
We are prudes, right? In their mind, I've been married 20 years to the same woman. I mean, if you want to include my first marriage, I've been a guy that's been married almost 30 years. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong, long term. If you've been divorced, that's your thing. That's your life. But my point is that they see that as an abnormal. Why would you? First of all, why would you have experimented and tried many sexual things with many different partners? Because that's just human nature. See what I'm telling you? That's just human nature. That's just what you want. You should be doing. You should be testing the waters and enjoying yourself, and make sure that you don't live in your little bubble of one man and one woman. That's just abnormal. So they truly believe it. You've seen some of the laws. The stupid straw law. They know what's better for us, and they're going to keep telling us. Now they're down at the child level. I don't know if you know this, but in California, your daughter can get an abortion at 12 years old from school, go to school, get an abortion, come back, go home. You never know what's happened. They don't have to tell you. A transgender young man or woman at 12 years old, they can go to the school registrar and say, I now identify as a female. And you can't call the parents to check. You can't call the sociologist to check. I mean, you just have to take that child's word for it.
And you can't call them a boy any longer, or you could get in trouble for that.
So I think the agenda is to push just no borders, if you would. And I give you credit. You helped me. I wrote a book. You helped me with the titles, and the very first chapter of the book is absolutes. Absolutely not. They don't want us to have absolutes. No boy, no girl, no male, no female. There's no real right or wrong way to have sex, or how many times, or with how many people. And this is truly what they believe.
For adults, I believe that adults can do whatever they want. That's between them and their maker. But to push that on children is so unbelievably sick. I was just telling you earlier that when I opened that, when I opened up that, they call it a framework. It felt like a pedophile's cookbook. It it feels like, and it's like, I don't know if they hate children or if they hate America, which is what I kind of think the agenda always boils down to. When certain things they always say, follow the money. But I think in the case of these real hardcore communistic leftists, it's follow the hate America. And I think when you topple the children, you topple everything. So what are the three? Because I couldn't look at it, and I am gonna. If it's okay, I want to post it for my listeners.
You may have to be medicated through the whole thing.
I'm always medicated. No. But what are the top three most twisted mandates? And I'm going to call them mandates. They're not frameworks, because to my understanding, they're saying teachers must be equipped to teach this stuff.
Oh yeah, speak to it and teach. I mean, they get all up in arms that you don't want to arm teachers because God forbid they should.
Not to protect the kids,
child, right?
With weapons.
But let's make sure that the teacher is well informed on illustrations of masturbation, same-sex couples, and all this other. We have to make sure they're okay there.
Right.
You said something. You kind of went over it pretty quick. About getting the kids. One of the famous quotes from Hitler was, he knew if he had the kids, he had the nation. If he could get the youth, he had the nation. Every one of these dictators knew if they could get the hearts of the youth, they had it. They could win. Think about that. So now what you have is this out of control these legislators here in California, legislators here in California, and they're telling you what's right for your kids based on what they believe morality is. Think about that. Those guys in Sacramento are trying to tell you and I what morality should be.
Yeah, I know. We should be listening to Hollywood, for crying out loud.
I know, right. We're waiting for Beyonce to chime in on this one, or Lady Gaga, whatever her name is.
Right.
But, right. So when you talk about the top three things, the first thing, and parents, you've got to go in. Board members do not like when there are mad.
We're going to talk about what people can do. We're gonna,
but I mean, you got to engage. Look at your kids' books. Ask them what's going on in school. But the top three things, number one would be that there are no absolutes in sexual activity, right? Doesn't matter with who, doesn't matter with how many. If it feels good, if it seems right to you, then it's the right thing for you, and it's the right thing for your body. All right. The second thing is there are no more norms. So mom and dad, they're not really the norm. Male and female, not really the norm. Male and male is the norm. Female and female is the norm.
When they started this whole sex ed thing in schools, it was basically learning body parts, biology, basic birds and bees.
Reproductive.
Reproduction.
Reproductive something.
Right.
How the system works.
Should we have been able to see that it was going to get this far, or and in my case, how is it you can explain that it is going to get this far to people, which I tried to do with my family and friends, and you get looked at like the lunatic? How do we talk about this? Because this doesn't stop. I mean, one thing that we've learned about dealing with the communistic left is that this is all systematic. It's all it's all a plan. I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but what's next? How far is this going to go?
Look where abortion went. We won't get into it deep, but I mean, look where it went from the 70s, which is at the risk of the life of the mother, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of like it's like you walk up to the vending machine, you choose the one you want, whenever you want, however you want, even
whenever you want, after it's out, whenever you want. Yeah.
So it was never the intention. It was never anyway, and they sold it to us based on the woman has if she's in trouble, we've got to help her out. Same thing here. It's you said it. This is the bad part. Parents have not stepped up and done their job. So the schools have decided, well, the moral, we need to teach the moral values because everybody's the same, right? Everybody's equal, and you can't tell somebody. This is what happened with gay marriage. You can't tell somebody who to love. Right, and even my gay friend said, Joe, this is dangerous. This is the road they went down. I thought that was pretty interesting. I got this from I don't know if he's a friend of yours, but Xander Gibb was on my show on a regular basis. He keeps he's a gay talk show host, and he talks about some of the slippery slopes that he worries about that he sees happening. So again, back to what they're pre-K. So they're teaching you in pre-K. They're showing you pictures of mommy and daddy in bed with each other. You saw the illustrations.
Right.
Daddy and daddy in bed with each other.
Right.
Look, let me ask you a question. If they truly just wanted to teach the kids that there are different relationships out there, and you just need to be accepting of the different relationships, then why wouldn't you have two guys holding a hand maybe with a baby with them, or two women holding hands with a baby with them? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
In a more normal environment setting, why do they go right to the bedroom? Because they want to destigmatize sex. Sex is now, with our teenagers, it's like kissing was with us in the 70s. Right?
You know what? I was a dancer, and most of the males I knew wore more makeup than I do. Okay? And I loved them dearly. We were very close. But it was my decision when I brought them into my world after I had children, because I needed to be able to know that they were ready and that I explained this to them in a way where there wouldn't be any bullying or weird. I did not express it as this is normal. This is just how he dresses. This is how he chooses to do it. But by no means did I say, and this is normal. And if you want to do that, I mean, to put all these ideas in kids' head is just so harmful. But I'm telling you, I knew very few men that didn't wear full face makeup and extensions.
Everybody says I need it. No, so to your point though, it's parents are afraid. They're afraid to talk to their kids about moral values. They're afraid to talk to their kids about sex. They're afraid to talk to the kids about finances. Why is that? Why? Because look at all the mistakes that they made. They think because they made all these mistakes that they don't have a right to speak to it. But man, because you made those mistakes, you need to look at your kids and go, look, don't go through this.
Right.
Don't do what I did. Don't take 10 years to pay off a debt on a stupid car that I bought that was way out of reach
or
for me.
Or they're being told that they shouldn't judge. They shouldn't judge. So why they can't tell their kids to have any sort of thought about the situation because parents don't know what to feel about this.
Let me tell you what. When that young man shows up to pick up your sweet little daughter, okay, and he's got holes in there, it's bigger than the lug nuts on your car, right? And he's got all kinds of tattoos, and he's man and yeah, buddy. No, he's not for her. I'm going to judge, okay? I got that right for the moment. I'm just going to judge. You are to protect. Look, whether you're a Christian or not, your job number one is to protect your children. And protecting your children is not always comfortable. Protecting your child sometimes is saying, you're not going to that party. If I have to drive down there and sit in front of that house all night to make sure you don't go, that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
All right? Sometimes it means making them uncomfortable or even making them mad at you.
Right. But we want them to be our friends. And we're being told by the society that everything goes. So you're a man
when these 40-year-old guys are talking about their 12-year-old daughters and they just want to be their friends, I said, man, that's creepy.
Well, that's creepy.
Okay? That is
just creepy. So you're a man of God's heart. I know you. And how bad does this grieve you on a spiritual level when you're, not talking on the radio or chatting with me and we're making jokes? How deeply does this hit you? What's going on?
It's really funny because, I get questions from non-Christians all the time. How do you separate your Christianity from what you do? Because we're supposed to obey the law and there are things up there. And I said, look, you can't separate the wet from the water, right? I mean, you can kind of control it, but you can't separate it. It's the same thing for me. Everything I come at is from a Christian point of view. And if you think about it, Christ's biggest concern was, what are you doing with the kids, right? Bring the little kids unto me. Don't do them any harm. So I'm sitting there watching these kids, and I look at this like, I've got to make sure everybody, and this is something people need to understand, that Christian legislators or Christian educators, if you would, we don't cater to Christian kids.
Right.
Jesus never said just cater to the Christian kids. We cater to all kids. We want to make sure every child feels safe, feels loved, and feels wanted in that environment. But you're right. I am extremely grieved. You know that teenage suicide rates in this country, this wonderful, wealthy country, are the highest they are anywhere on the planet. And these kids have $500 iPhones, $200 sneakers. They have pants that for the amount of money they paid for those pants, you'd buy a month's worth of wardrobe for some people in other countries. So with all of this going on around them, they're still miserable. And the legislator thinks the way to make them happy, the way to help them out of their depression, is to show them how to have safer sex, with more people. I mean, they're out of their minds. How about we get back to giving them a foundation, right? I mean, maybe it's not God. Maybe we can't push God on them into public school. I get it. But don't stop a teacher who's shown the love of God from there are teachers that will make statements that are biblical in nature. And when a child tells them, where do you get all these great sayings? They can't say from the Bible.
Right.
I'm a Christian. I read my Bible. That's where I get it. Right? So, yes, you're right. When you see the emptiness in a lot of these kids' eyes, they have momentary happiness. Or maybe they're doing a sport or they're part of an event, and they're happy for the moment. But you can see the emptiness in these kids' eyes. And you just want to go up and pray for them or find out what's going on in their lives and give them so much more than just that momentary high, if you would, or happiness.
And I read in that mandate is that by kindergarten, which means then by pre-K, they would have learned that they need to ask permission to give another child a hug or a high five.
Yes.
So you go to a sporting event, you score that goal, and you're excited as heck, and you go, ow, whoa, can I give you a high
Can I
five?
touch you like this? Yeah.
Yes. We're making what's natural. They're making what's natural weird. We're scared to say anything about it.
You got to speak up. That really what it boils down to.
Okay, so let's talk about, and every week I say this, and I don't know that, say you don't have kids, you don't have grandkids, and you're going, why does this affect me? I think it affects us because this is our future generation, and this is the most screwed up that we have let the left have their hands in what our children are doing. So what's next down the pipeline for America? Because this is our next generation.
Well, so my mantra on my show is parents, Christian parents, conservative parents, loving parents, you have let this happen.
Absolutely.
Right? You backed out of education, you backed out of your child's lives, and some people think, look, if you got yourself in a position where both mom and dad have to work, it is what it is, all right? But that doesn't mean you bow out. You come home tired. I get it. For years, I was a single dad with 4 kids, all right? I got tired, let me tell you what. But that doesn't stop you from looking at those kids and going, what happened in school today? And not in a negative way, what's going on? You know your children. Look, if you don't know that your child's attitude has changed or something has changed or what have you, then I'm sorry, you're not being a good parent. You should be locked in on your kids. You know what bothers your children, what don't. Be aware of what's going on around them. Be aware that something is up, something's not quite right. How you doing? What are you guys working on in science? Not what did you learn in science today? What do you guys got going on in science? I mean, you blowing anything up? You doing volcanoes yet? What's going on? Make it a conversational thing, and that only happens at the table. You know that the average parent today spends between 7 and 12 minutes with their child every day. What do you think about that? 7 to 12 minutes. Your school, your education program, and the kids they hang out with have them for 8 hours a day at least.
That's true.
And then they come home. You have, what happened in school today? Nothing.
Right.
Anything exciting? Nope.
No.
Got homework? Yep. Did you do your homework? Yep. Okay. That's it. And then they go upstairs, and what do? They get on their phone, they talk to their friends again, all over again, the cycle of influence from the younger people. So if we want to take our children back, we keep talking about taking back the state, taking back the country.
Right.
Well, how are we going to do that? Let's do it like Hitler did it. Let's take back our kids. Why don't we start there?
Wow.
Take back your kids. So I'm not a squishy guy. I believe in the hugging and the loving for your children, but I also believe in the little noogie to the head and go, no, we're not doing that in this house. No, you're not going to that party. No, honey, you're putting clothes on before you walk out of this door.
Well, and
You
if
know
a
what I'm
little
saying?
boy walks down the stairs in a dress, there's no guys in the house anymore. In black families, 70% single parent households, and there's no guy in the house that's going, knock it off. You know?
But here's the thing. You go back and look at decades and decades and decades of information. You just hit the nail on the head. When a girl has no dad in the house, she's more likely to get pregnant at an early age. She's more, there's problems on both sides. When a male grows up with no woman in the house, okay, he's more likely to, abuse his partner, abuse his spouse, or what have you. So there must be something there. Whether you believe in God or Mother Nature, there's a balance there.
It's so hard. I was a single parent. My kids were in progressive schools, and I could see it coming. My kids are grown women now, but I could see it coming in the day. But for them, I remember my trade-off was at least they don't have to go to the schools in my neighborhood. So I tried my best to teach them my values when they got home. By the time they got in college and now working in Hollywood, I've lost the battle. But
well, you know what though? Here's the funny thing about it. It's like everything else. You know, my kids have gone through some cycles in their lives, and they come back home. And you know, you ask one of my, I don't want to give out their names, but one of my children in particular, you know, what is, well, this is a safe place, if you would, from a standpoint of you're going to tell me what I need to know. All right. I mean, and that's why in my house, a safe place is not the place you're going to go and there's a little squishy animal in there, and you know what I'm saying. It's not calm music. The safe space is you're going to come here and say, and I'm going to look at you and say, you screwed up, and this is how you screwed up, but this is how you can fix it.
Right.
It's not just you're screwed up and you know too bad, whatever.
Right.
It's like here's where you screwed up. Here's where you can fix it. Now go back and do A, B, and C, and things will turn around for you. And they want that. Parents
They do. They really do. They really
want it.
So say you don't have kids or grandkids, but you are upset about this mandate. And again, I'm going to post this so you guys can see, what we're talking about, and you can be equally as freaked the heck out. I'm really surprised I have not cussed at all in this show, because this is some sick stuff. What can they do?
You find out the school district they go to. You look on their website. You find out the nights that they meet, and you put a group of parents together. And you know, usually it's a group of moms that come in and they're slamming the table and they're talking about what you're doing to their kids. You need to poke dads in the butt and get them out there too. They need to see couples out there. They need to see the family out there. I need somebody on the other side of the dais looking at me going, look, this is disgusting, and I don't care what the state is throwing down at you. You find a way to fix this. And they did it in San Diego. They filled that room at the San Diego, one of the San Diego school districts down there. They filled that room with angry parents because the more liberal parents figured, oh, this is good. This is good stuff, and you don't have to go fight it. Oh, they don't. Look, I think it's advocating your responsibility as a parent to allow the school to teach your kids. Look, they're not just teaching them about sex. They're teaching them about moral values. They're teaching them whether there is or isn't a God in a lot of ways. They're teaching them whether this country is good or bad. You need to pay attention to what your kids are learning. It's tough. You come home, you single mom, you get it. You're tired.
Yeah,
but,
I get it. Yeah. But this is beyond the pale.
Mad. I say, those kids didn't ask for you. You had those kids.
Yeah. So what can they do about this mandate? They can show up at the meetings. They can raise hell. They can get their husbands down there, or find some guy to go down there with you and say that's your husband.
Yeah, just go pick up.
Just pick up a guy, and because this is not for play. The leftist communists play for keeps. This is not where it's going to end. God, there was one more. You said something.
Well, the other thing, but to your point though, get to the school board meetings. Find out where they're at. It's not that hard to find. Find out where they're at. Get to those school board meetings and engage. You can't be emotional. When you get to that podium, don't start yelling and screaming at them because they shut down. Don't do the whole crying thing. Look what you're doing to my son, daughter, grandson. Be specific. So show them the pictures. I did this one night to a degree. Blow up the pictures and show them to them and say, are you good with these? Can we hang these around the boardroom? They had a book with a descriptive rape scene in it, and I threatened to read it because it was okay for the kids to read. And I'm sitting here saying, bring me the book because I'm going to read it. Why are you going to read it? I'm going to read it because you're okay with this. So if you're okay with it, it must be okay. Let's read it.
For kids, let's read it to the adults.
Oh, they were wigging out. Why are you wigging out? I'm an adult. You're giving it to kids.
Wow.
When you have the school board going, well, we should table this and come back and get more information on it.
Really?
That means one of two things. One is they're really truly concerned about what's in, and they want to look at it, or they're truly concerned about who's out there in the audience, and they want to bring it back at a more quiet time. So you're going to watch, you're going to pay attention to what's going on. And even to the point where you may want to raise your hand and say, hey, if you're going to put a committee together, I want to be part of the committee to go over that curriculum.
Right.
No?
Oh, that's interesting. Are you able to go to these meetings if you don't have a kid in that school?
Oh, yeah. If you're actually technically, if you're a taxpayer anywhere in the state, you have a say. But especially if you're a taxpayer in the community that the school district is in, you say, hey, look, I'm a taxpaying community member, and I want to know why you're wasting my money on these particular items.
That's true. That's another way of looking at it. If you don't want to take on the moral argument, why are you spending my money on this when Johnny can't read?
We have the 47th. We are 47th when it comes to math, science, and so there was some three categories,
But
right,
we have
in the
money
country.
for these books.
We get more legislation in this state that has to do with sexual orientation, sex education, reproductive rights. I mean, I don't know. I always joke around with this on my show, and I say, look, you want to stop all this male and female stuff? Great. Let's just put a picture of a vagina on one bathroom and a penis on the other. Go, if you got one of these, you go over here. If you got one of these, you go over here. And now you stop all the male-female stuff.
That's a great solution to this.
Well, listen, they don't have isn't it funny? They don't have a problem with shoving this stuff on your kids. But when you hold it up in their face, all of a sudden, they're embarrassed. They're uncomfortable with it. Wow.
Are you safe if your kids go to a private school? But like one of my grandkids goes to a very permissive, very progressive private school, and I would assume that they would think all this stuff is groovy.
Remember, the state, even for private schools, there are minimum requirements that they have to meet in order to be licensed by the state to do that.
And those are scholastic, those are academic requirements, right?
Right. Yeah, but think about something. You know, when it comes to academic requirements, the Bible has been kind of pushed out of some private schools because you have to have so many years and so many credits in these areas of literature. And it used to be they had this, in California, you could teach Bible as literature.
Right.
And one of those loons from San Francisco decided that wasn't a good thing because you're being sneaky. Now listen, you're being sneaky about teaching them about God, but this sex education, you're not being sneaky about teaching them anything with that, are you?
Oh gosh, so private schools are not exempt from this sort of thing.
They won't. They are not blatantly exempt. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right.
We have to fight for our kids. Sonia, you know what it's like to fight. You've helped fight before in some of the more political stuff, but the kids are so much more important than and one feeds into the other, obviously.
I've been fighting for my kids forever, and now that I have grandkids, and this seems so insurmountable and also because you're dealing with the kids' parents who think some of this stuff can be harmless. You know, what's wrong with teaching people not to bully those who are different? And there's nothing wrong with that. I teach you that. I've taught you that. And that's why you don't do that.
Right.
You know? But this is taking this into a whole different realm. This is very sick. We're going to have a generation of really screwed up, very, very, very confused children. And I'm really concerned about America. Like you said, you get the kids, you get the society.
And they know it. They know it. They're very, very aware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, can you say something to make everybody smile before you go? Is there like on a happy note that we can do?
Well, look, there is. We have to go out of our way to find people that are willing to fight. Okay, and I like to consider myself one of those people. When I got on the school board, I didn't know it was like it was. A lot of people forget it'd be easy to turn around. But to the positive side of all this, you can always find somebody that will fight for you. And you've got a guy like me on my local school board. You got an issue, you got a problem, come and talk with me. We'll work it out together. And if it's egregious, we'll fight it together. We have won battles. I don't want to give them all away because I don't want people to know what's happening behind the scenes. But we have won some pretty significant battles. And we can do that. So it's not hopeless.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world. But you've got to be willing to put some effort and energy into it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for coming on. We're going to get you back on to talk about updates and if you have any more ideas on what we could do.
Always fun.
But yeah, no, I really appreciate it, especially last minute. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Yes, you will. On my show, you'll see me too.
Yes.